I got to find it.
Ooh, nice.
Very fancy, Richard. Yes. Very fancy. That was awesome.
I was looking forward
to that. For those just joining us, they're wondering what's going on. Mr. Non-Technology here. Well, just before the telecast started here, I found out I had two problems. Let me just actually get us onto screen to make sure that this works. One, my mouse had run out of energy. So I'm actually going to plug it in right now. And the second was that it didn't look like my video file would work in terms of showing it here on screen. I'm not sure if StreamYard has done a change or not. So I just threw it onto the laptop there to show it at the beginning. So anyway, welcome to Vintage SF Live. I'm here with my buddies Sam of Sam Not So Wise Whitney of Secret Sauce of Storycraft and Bart of Bart's Book Space. And sorry.
Good eve. Well, good morning, I guess.
What time is it in what time are we in Iceland right now, Sam?
It's only 6:30 p.m. Yeah.
Okay, 6:30 p.m.
Yes.
That's right. And we're filming for Whitney and I. We're at 12:30 p.m. approximately in Central Standard Time. And I think Bart, you're 1 hour earlier than us.
I'm at 11:34. Yes.
Okay.
In the mountain time. Beautiful Boulder, Colorado.
All right. I've got my mouse charging. Let's get started with this. We talked about, or we had a buddy read this last week and a half or so of Chasm City. I almost said Chasm. Chasm City by Alistair Reynolds. This is actually the very first Alistair Reynolds books that I've read, even though I've been collecting them for a long time. I did listen to one on audiobook, but as I'd mentioned to these friends of mine here, my audiobook listening skills aren't great. I either fall asleep or I think about other things and I lose track. So I don't count that as one of the reads for Alistair Reynolds.
I'm the same way, Richard. I think we talked about that. Audiobooks, I still have like 4 credits on Audible that I have not used because I fail every time I pick up a book. Like I loved Pandora Store. I started listening to this. I cannot finish it. So you're not the only one.
How about the other two? Do audiobooks work for you?
Go on, Whitney.
Well, I was going to say, to be fair, Bart, I feel like Pandora Star is probably not the perfect audiobook. That being said, I love some audiobooks. I get done with as many books as I do only because I'm able to do at least half audiobooks. But I do have an hour to work each way every day. So
no,
that's good listening time there.
Yeah, I wish I had that. No, I am purely eyes only, just physical books and my Kindle.
Yeah.
I just don't know when I would listen to books. Like I don't really have those times in the day. My journey to work is like 10 minutes, journey to university, 10 minutes. And when I'm around the house doing housework or whatever, which I know is a time when people listen to audiobooks, that's when I catch up on YouTube. So I just don't really have the time. So no.
Well, I know it's definitely a great thing for people who have difficulty with eyesight in terms of being able to listen to books. And so there's a lot of people who really, really benefit from audiobooks, and especially like Whitney was saying with those long commutes.
I will say as well, my wife only listens to books. She's not a big reader, but she joins the book club that I run here. So she reads those books by audiobook only. And she has ADHD. So she has problems paying attention when reading a physical book. And that's her way of being able to pay attention. So it's kind of the opposite to you guys, where she needs that to pay attention.
That's
interesting, because for me, my big problem is when I'm listening to an audiobook, I tend to space out, zone out. And then the bigger problem is with an audiobook, I find it much more difficult to go back and figure out where I was when it started to happen, that I kind of faded a little bit. When I'm reading, it happens much less, but when it does happen, I find it much easier just to flip the page or 2 pages and get back to reading. So audiobooks, I'm happy for those who enjoy them. And Whitney, if you have a long commute, I could see them. I like listening to podcasts. I find, however, it's like you get something out of it, and it's fine if you don't get everything. But I need to be really immersed when I'm reading, and audiobooks are a problem for me.
Well, I will also say, as weird as the audiobook, I suppose, representative of the group, I do have to say, I do think that it depends on the kind of reader you are for whether or not you'll get along with audiobooks. I also think it takes some time to train your brain, because I also listen to audiobooks at 2 times speed, which a lot of people are like, oh my gosh, how do you understand it? And it's like, well, it's because I've been doing it for years and years and years and years. So I also want to say it's also one of those things, because it's not just experience, it's also book dependent. For example, Pandora's Star, Bart, I did not listen to on audio because there was too many things happening and I was confused as to which character was what and what was happening. And they didn't change their voice when they were switching character perspectives, for example. So for me, I had to read it. And Chasm City was also a book that I read physically. Turns out that was a problem, but we'll get to that later. But that being said, I do have to say, I do think that some books lend themselves more easily to audiobooks. For example, like The Martian or Project Hail Mary are incredible audiobooks. But there are books that you have to pay a lot more attention to all the little tiny details, or maybe they have a huge cast of characters, or maybe it's a really huge info dumpy plot that you have to pay attention to. And those books I do have to physically read. So,
and narrators are key as well.
Oh, for sure. Yes, absolutely.
Actually, since you raised the problem you had with our book, why don't you just tell the people watching what that is?
Well, I have to show and tell. Okay. So this I actually I started on audio, and I really realized I needed a physical book with this one. And luckily I found out none of my bookstores had it, but I actually had an old library copy that I did buy from a library store. You can see it's got the library cover, and it's kind of got this janky spine situation going on here. But these are perfectly fine reading copies. So I was happy to join the boys in reading this book. And then I get to the end, and I'm discovering that I am unapologetically enraged with this ending. I could not handle the ending. I actually finished it and didn't say anything until the first person mentioned something. And then I was like, what are you talking about? I don't recognize any of this ending. And as you can see, when I flip here, you can see that there's this piece of tape running down the middle of the book. It turns out I'm missing something 15 pages of the ending. It was maybe not that many. I think it was only 6 or 7, but it was a lot of pages. And they just put this piece of tape in and sold it to me. And so I had to have somebody take pictures of the end of this book so I knew what happened, because I was very confused.
Well, Bart was angry with the end of the book, and he had all the pages.
I had all the pages, and I was still angry. So
yeah. Well,
we'll get into that.
More angry without those pages, let me tell you.
Well, I wonder if you would have, if you weren't doing a body read, just another benefit of reading together, would you have realized that you're missing something, or would you be just okay, well, this was weird?
I probably wouldn't have. I probably would have just been Alistair Reynolds can't end a book. Because it was you guys who told me, did you check the page numbers? And I'm like, well, no. Who checks the page numbers when they're reading? I didn't. So it wasn't until I got home and actually looked at the book that I was like, oh yeah, I'm missing some pages. So that was a fun disaster, turns out.
But you did end up reading all the pages, obviously.
I did. Yes, I did.
And then talking about audiobooks, we have Book Deco from Germany with us. Welcome. he says when he does a reread, the audiobook really works for him.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Again, when the details don't matter as much, I suppose.
True, because you've got it. You got the gist of the whole story too. One of the things I'm going to mention, you jarred a memory. By the way, this is none of our planned beginning here, but that's great. I love the way this goes. When I was working, a lot of my stuff was quick reads and things that I didn't get into too deeply. And I found that when I finished work, combined with, the screens and the phones and those sort of things, that I didn't have the focus or depth of focus needed to really read books well. And I sort of read more at a shallow level. And I found that was something that I had to practice to get back into. I mean, something that for years and years in my youth and into my early adult years, that was no problem. But it took me a little while to have to just be able to sit down with a book, say for half an hour to an hour, and just really lose myself in it without sort of feeling like I had to check something.
Mm-hmm. That's it. So, I would say for me, I'm noticing also that I have to, and I do much better if I actually remind myself to slow down as I begin to read. I actually talk to myself, slow down, just read slowly. Think about every sentence you're reading, so I don't start to rush wanting to read more pages and start to maybe skim a little bit. Kind of deep immersive reading is what I'm trying to kind of make it a norm for myself. And also I'm trying not to read. I used to read every minute I had. If I was going to the restroom for, a minute or two, I would take a book with me just for that time. I'm trying to avoid doing that and I find that if I read for more than, let's say, 25 minutes, I get immersed and I come at a different level of kind of immersion with a book, as opposed to just kind of bouncing and reading all the time in between things. So that's kind of my new thing.
Well, I will also say, even as somebody who's been doing audiobooks for a long time, I'm actually noticing just now, like as in this year, and I do have other things going on, which could be playing that, but I'm noticing that I'm having more burnout with audiobooks. Like I had this section at the end of 2025 where I would listen to something for like about an hour or 2 hours, and then I would just put it down and say, this is a DNF. I'm not in the mood. I'm not in the mood. And I would do that with every book I picked up, to the point where I was like, the amount of books I read in December that I actually finished was infinitesimally low. Like, I don't think I even finished one, because I couldn't get through longer than a couple of hours. And I think I had just like burned out on audiobooks. And then when I sat down for our buddy read to actually open up a physical book, I suddenly could pay more attention. So I do think that sometimes like breaks and changing up how you read really helps. Sometimes I even have to like do audio and physical book, and I'll follow along, so that way I don't drag either way. So I will say that I do think that how you consume books changes over time as well.
Oh, certainly. Like at the moment, my problem is pretty obvious, because I have a 3-month-old baby, which affects everything. And it's kind of, I find myself reading a lot less deep because I'm usually more tired, but also because I have to do my reading in short snatches now, because, I will be needed to help with the baby or whatever, or look after him, or he's being absolutely adorable, so I've got to go and say hello to him. And so I'm finding myself not being able to, if I read for half an hour now, it's like, that was glorious. So, things change.
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah, absolutely.
So is your phone full of pictures and videos now?
Absolutely packed full of it. Yeah.
I think that's the difference between when I had kids in the 90s and now, is that they are so well documented.
Yep. I'm having to kind of ration how many pictures I send to my family group, because I think they're getting a bit tired of it.
It's wonderful. I'm going to try and get us back on track. I did have an ice-breaking type of question or comment here. I was thinking about who are some of the prolific authors of the last 30 to 40 years, as in sort of pages published per year. Alistair Reynolds is definitely one of those. And so I was wondering, is there particular authors who seem to have that high publication rate that you really enjoy? Or do you think they are perhaps overloading the market with their material? What are your thoughts on some prolific authors of the last 30 or 40 years?
This is a hot topic.
Yeah.
Start as well. Who's going to start?
I can start if you guys are okay with that.
Sure.
I think one of the big ones that we have to talk about is going to be Adrian Tchaikovsky.
Yep.
I
knew his name would come up.
Yeah, I think he's very well known for the amount of prolific work that he comes out with. And I think that your follow-up question is a good one, but I don't know that it has an answer, because I do know some people are very diehard fans of certain works of his. And I also know that some of his works would have benefited better from editing, like my strong opinion. So I do think that quantity does make you a better writer, but then you also have to have that mix in of time to edit. And we don't want people to get the Lucas effect, George Lucas, that is, where nobody's willing to say no, or nobody's willing to actually get their ideas, which is what I think happened with Star Wars later in life.
I think that's happened with Stephen King as well. That they can't say no to any of the words that he puts out.
Yeah. I think there are two things there with Tchaikovsky or any author who puts out a lot. One is to think about how it affects the quality of the work, but there's also the financial side that people don't really talk about. But I mean, if you're popular like he is, I suppose there are financial benefits to putting out 2 or 3 books per year. That and can you blame him for that? I'm not sure, but I do think someone like Adrian Tchaikovsky, because he is brilliant. I mean, I just finished Shroud and I really loved it. I loved Shroud so much. It was. I mean, it seemed like he took his time with it. There was no fluff. It was great. I recommend it to anyone who has not read it. But some of his other books just seem to be written very quickly, and you can feel that it's just could have been trimmed or. So I don't know. It's difficult to say, but I think the financial side is a big driver for like Sanderson, like those types of authors who will put out several books a year. I prefer. I know Sam would agree. Someone like Ishiguro, for example, who is I think single digits still over his whole career, nine I think, 9 books, and he clearly takes great care with his art. He really looks at it as
short books as well.
Short books too, yeah. They're not 600 pages, except maybe the one that you didn't like. I have not read it, The Unconsoled.
Well, that was like 450, but it felt like 5,000.
Yeah.
That's quite a difference.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know she's not recent, but I do know that the Dragon Riders of Pern lady really had some financial difficulties, and that's why one of the reasons why she put out so many books and so many spin-off series and things like that. There's a bunch of articles out there about what she talked about and how she was trying, her husband died or somebody, and she had to support her kids and herself on this budget, and they weren't very popular at first and things like that. So
yeah, and Bugeaud, as Maddie Groves says here, is very prolific too. And I haven't read, what is it, the Vorkasian series?
Vorkasian.
Yeah, I haven't read those, but I understand they're very, very good.
I'm going to say they're pretty average. I mean, they're good. They're good. Yeah. I like Miles. I think he's a cool character, but in terms of like mind-boggling, definitely not. So
okay.
But I'm still a fan. I still get it. I honestly think that her fantasy work is a little bit more, like her heart's more in it. So
I think that might get into the question you might ask us later as well, Richard.
Oh.
Yeah. Let's just say hello to Axel Plate here, 9080 from the Netherlands. One of the things that we were just talking about we talk in Voxer about these books that we're buddy reading, and one of the things we're talking about is that perhaps more Europeans could join us at this time of day, being in the middle of the day or the work day here in North America. So welcome.
Speaking of Netherlands, hello to Netherlands. Interesting fun fact. I don't know if you guys knew, but Reynolds lived in Netherlands for a long time, wrote a lot of his books while he was there. He met his wife in Netherlands, and then they moved to, I think, Wales. I think Wales, right?
Yeah.
So,
I think he's from Wales.
Yeah. From Wales, yeah, then lived in England. But I think, anyway, but he definitely lived in the Netherlands for a long time.
Sam, I don't know if you got it. Sam, did you have a say on the prolific authors, perhaps that you like, or your opinion about?
I mean, yeah,
oversaturating the market.
Tchaikovsky was easily going to be one of my answers, but I'm also going to give you another very easy answer. If you know me, broken records, Ian Banks. Right? I know he's no longer with us, and he hasn't been for 13 years, and he pretty much fit into that time period that you gave us. But he wrote in, how long was he active? Like 26 years or something. He wrote 28 books. So I'm talking about him as both a sci-fi author and a mainstream fiction author. So he wrote a lot of books. And I've read, 17 of them, and only one of them I would consider bad. So I don't think he's oversaturating. I thought he was, I would say one a year is still prolific, right? That's still a lot. And his are varying in size, but I thought he was a consistently amazing author and somebody that authors should maybe look up to in their standards and proliferation.
And once again, they weren't short books either. They were, 400, 500 pages, some of them.
Yeah. His first book was short. He's got a couple of other short books, but generally they are decent. Yeah.
And you'd mentioned, and some people may not know this, that Ian Banks has written in both, what would you call it, mystery thriller genre, the other one? I'm not sure.
You can't really pigeonhole it. He was so creative that each book has its kind of different style and different thing that it's going for. So he called it himself mainstream fiction, just kind of contemporary, whatever you want to call it, just the general fiction. But he wrote 14 sci-fi books and 14 non-sci-fi books, so that's another cool thing as well. Can you
tell how you can quickly know the difference between the two?
There's no M when he's not writing sci-fi.
So the author's name is Ian M. Banks when it's sci-fi, and that's Ian Banks when he's not.
Yes.
Yeah. And I was gonna say that's kind of an unusual combination, because we see so many authors who kind of jump back and forth between fantasy and science fiction, but authors who so consistently write between more literary fiction and science fiction successfully in both. Perhaps science fiction maybe a little bit more. He's better known for his sci-fi a little bit, but successful in both. Wasp Factory is the one I want to read soon, hopefully soon, from him. But that's unusual, right? For an author to write, cross that bridge, straddle that divide.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, I can't really think of any other examples. The only one,
Ishiguro a little bit.
I was going to say Ishiguro a little bit, but three of his nine books. Yeah.
Well, I think it's more common to have somebody who writes more contemporary fiction or slipstream, as I often have heard it called, fiction, and then they're well known in that, and then they have like one or two that dip into sci-fi, and then they move back.
Yeah.
Or people that they don't even realize are science fiction authors. They're slipstream, say like Michael Crichton. There's some people who would not think he's a science fiction author, where the vast majority of his ideas are definitely science fiction.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Margaret Atwood, not that she would admit that, but there's one.
Well, I think most of her stuff is sci-fi, whether she wants to admit it or not, but
So anyways, I'm going to move us on from here, but I'm just going to mention to those who are either listening or watching right now or watching later, on Thursday, I'm going to just put out a little question in a video. It's going to be a really short video asking you, the listeners, about prolific authors and what your thoughts are in terms of the quality and the amount of work they put out and suggestions of names. We've only mentioned a few here, but that'll be your chance to comment about it. And so you can take the conversation further. So let's get into Chasm City. I don't know, Sam, if you were prepared. I had asked if you would give us a little setup of the novel, and we want to go spoiler free to start with. So as we talk about it, we'll just do a setup and some generalities. We'll talk about the novel and give you a bit of a recommendation if you're going to be going after you've heard about that. But after that, we're going to get into the deep dive in terms of talking about all the things going on in this novel. And there are a lot. And perhaps some of our opinions of the ending, whether we read it or not. Sam, can you give us a little bit of a setup of what this novel's about?
Yeah, I want to thank you, Richard, for giving me this wonderful opportunity to describe this book, which is very easy to describe in a non-spoiler fashion. Thank you for this wonderful opportunity.
I figure our local literary genius here would be the best to go to.
Well, you did it on your channel, Sam. You did it already. You can do this.
Can I just play my video? Okay. So the plot begins with a man called Tanner, and ostensibly the plot is about him on a revenge tale. His boss and his boss's wife have been murdered by a man called Ravitch, however you want to say it. And he is chasing this man through a space terminal on his home planet of Sky's Edge. Something goes catastrophically wrong while he's chasing him, getting kind of closer, but not quite there. Up on a space elevator, something goes very wrong. And he wakes up 15 years later. He wakes up in orbit around another planet called Yellowstone, which is the home of Chasm City, which is the titular city of the book. And he has kind of lost most of his memories. But the one thing he can remember is his objective to kill Ravitch, to find him, hunt him down, and kill Ravitch. And from there, he travels down to Chasm City and he gets into a lot of scrapes, a lot of crazy action, a lot of crazy scenarios, trying to find this man using his military nous to try and hunt him down. And meanwhile, his memories are starting to slowly come back. But these memories are very confusing because they seem at odds with who he thinks he is, what he thinks he knows about himself and his life. So he's trying to puzzle things together whilst trying to find this man. And simultaneously, we have another story going on at the same time, which is also to do with memory. He has contracted a virus back on his home planet just before he traveled through space for 15 years, asleep, frozen, by the way. And this virus basically makes him see the memories of somebody called Sky, who was the founder of his planet, Sky's Edge. And it is showing him his memories from Sky's early childhood, from I think about the age of 3. And we slowly get to learn about this character through time, about how he became an important figure on this generation ship that was flying out to this planet. And eventually these plot lines start to twist together and make things even more complicated. And I think that's as far as I'll go. And I'll let you guys fill in if I missed anything.
That's very good.
That was very good.
Smooth.
Yeah. So one of the things I'm going to do is just part of reading a novel together is every 50 pages or so, we would discuss what we had read. And I found this to be the perfect buddy read because you're trying to piece together the things that Sam was talking about there as you go along. And you are also trying to anticipate what could happen. How did you appreciate the novel as we were going through it, the process, the journey that we were taking through it?
What was the question? Anyone? I mean, I can start, I guess. So the question is, how did I appreciate the novel, the reading experience, or are you talking about the buddy read more with this question?
Well, the buddy read was part of it for us, but the journey of reading in the novel versus as we get towards the conclusion, how did you enjoy that? How did you enjoy the buddy read too? You could go into that.
So I'll say quickly, I really liked the beginning of the book. I liked I like the book overall. First of all, just to quickly throw that out there, I thought it was a great read. It's fast paced. lots of action, lots of great ideas, good world building. I like Reynolds's, and I've read a few of his books, approach to science. Also in science fiction, it's realistic. So for example, we don't have, faster than light travel, FLT, it's not there. I like the groundedness of it. I like how it feels visceral. So I really resonated with it. Also in the beginning, it starts with a great prologue, and then the setup is fantastic, and then we get great action. I thought this was going to be one of my all-time favorite books, perhaps. Right now, House of Suns is my favorite Alistair Reynolds story. I thought this was going to maybe supplant that or join it, on that pedestal. So I'm clearly setting up that I was a little bit disappointed by the ending, but overall, I thought it was great. I mean, it's well written. I would recommend this book to almost anyone who likes to read science fiction. It's hard SF, but not like super hard. It's, it's kind of medium. And what I like about it also, the reading experience of it, you get kind of two things. You are in the mind of this person, let's call him Tanner, although there's different, whatever, that Sam described so well. So we are with this person all the time. So it feels very intimate. You are riding with him as he's trying to piece back his memories and figure out what the heck is going on as he gets some flashes and weird dreams. It was fantastic. But also at the same time, you are planted in this world that is incredible. So you have both the grand scope of it, with plagues happening in cities, kind of utopian cities collapsing, and all kinds of aliens and big people, and just a fantastic amount of life in this book. But also at its heart, it's a personal journey. So I thought it was great. And we'll talk about the ending later on, I guess.
Yeah, afterwards when we do the spoilers. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I would honestly boil your question down, Richard, into a question almost about the way that it was structured. Because what was really interesting about it, and you kind of learn to trust Reynolds as you're going through. I'm sorry, give me just a second.
Okay.
I
Sure.
apologize.
I'll just remove her from the screen until she returns. Anyways, how about Sam?
Yeah, well, I think, oh God, it's a wild ride of a story, and I think probably what Whitney was going to allude to is that we kind of learn a lot of the story with the character. So we learn a lot about Chasm City and about the life of Chasm City through this person who's never been there, which is a fun thing to do. But also, because this plays so much with memory, coming back to the memories as he kind of re-experiences them means that we get to kind of learn them as he relearns them. And it's kind of jumbled. His memories aren't coming back in kind of chronological order, so we're not being presented them in chronological order. So we have to kind of piece stuff together, and that's where part of the enjoyment came from. Even if you're just reading it on your own, that would be great, but being able to bounce off each other to do that and kind of have theories about what's going on, that was such a fun part of it. And there were so many parts in this book where we would read a section for the day and would be like, that felt a bit weird, that felt a bit out of the blue, that felt irrelevant. And then 100 pages, 200 pages later, we'd be like, that's related to this now. Now it makes complete sense. And he knew what he was doing all along. It wasn't pointless. It wasn't meaningless. There was a very intentional why it was put there, but we didn't know at the time. And we have to try and trust the reader. So I think it was that whole process that made it such a good read.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Sorry about that. I had a grocery delivery that got delivered. My bad. But yeah, so Sam, you picked up exactly where I was going to say, because I think that intentional obfuscation of like doing things so out of order to where you were distracted by everything, like sort of pulled you along. And the most fun part of the whole story, at least during our buddy read, was hearing everybody's theory of like what did and didn't matter and what was and wasn't coming and like who and what this really meant. And all of those things were really fun about this story. I do think that it was just a little too much, in my opinion. I do think that there were a couple of things that really could have been cleaned up that would have actually enhanced my enjoyment even more. But I also want to acknowledge that this was Alistair Reynolds' second book ever, I think. So he's still learning and growing as an author, which I always try to make sure I make room for people to be imperfect, you know, in their writing styles. But man, this one had so much potential and so many fun, fascinating pieces. One of the things that the structure also made me appreciate, which I think one of y'all told me during our buddy read, and I forget who it was. I think it was Sam, but somebody was saying that you have to also look beyond just Tanner's story, and you have to understand that he's also introducing us to this world of Revelation space. And there's only one book at the time in it, but a lot of the things that we thought may not make as important of an impact on this story are things that come up in the other books, which I think Sam has read. And that's why I think it was you that said that. But I thought that was a really great perspective check because he's also trying to build a universe, not just Tanner's story. And I think that was a really fun perspective for this, that he was already planning and plotting multiple webs of multiple stories and how to link them all together.
Mm-hmm. And for you, Richard, this was your first Reynolds. What did you think as you were reading it?
Well, I thought it was great as a standalone, that it had no problem diving in and understanding what was going on. I found that it was a cross between The Star's My Destination by Alfred Bester with that revenge plot for Gully Foyle and Memento. We talked about the movie a little bit, that Whitney had brought that up, of trying to figure out who you are. And in scenes, they didn't play necessarily backwards, but they were flashback scenes that played into what would happen as he was figuring out his memory. So that was very entertaining and easy to read. And the worlds were fascinating. And as you said, I love that he respected the speed of light, that you have to figure things out in terms of the distances and the time dilation that would occur. Another thing I want to mention, I can remember, I don't know if some of you watch Vince Gilligan shows like Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, or Pluribus, but his shows his attention to detail lend themselves to fans after every episode talking about the episode and having these theories of what's going to happen next in his shows. And I felt that's kind of where Reynolds was too, that a lot of these pieces, even if we weren't sure what was happening at the time, they had a purpose that were going to come together towards the end. And I would say on the whole that worked. I think there's some pieces that didn't quite fit or weren't necessarily pieces that we needed in this book, that was slightly bloated. But overall, was very happy to read it. I had a hard time finishing a section and then not reading on, because it was one of those kind of page turners that something happened and you wanted to find out what would happen next.
And he was very cheeky with his cliffhangers.
Yeah,
it's definitely one of those. It was very addictive reading for sure.
And it always seemed to happen right at that 50-page mark, like
really
every time.
We would choose ends, or we had Dale, who's not with us on the screen here, is a reader with us. And Dale broke apart this book into chapters approximately 50 pages long. And I'm sure that he didn't know how chapters were going to end, but there were some really great cliffhangers at those section ends.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So I think for the people who haven't read the book and do not want to know more about it, let's just give our little overall impression or rating for it in terms of whether we would recommend it for reading. And then we'll announce spoilers and go really into depth about themes and ideas here. So I can even start on that one if you want.
Go for it.
This was my first Reynolds read, and I'm very glad to have a bunch of his books because I'm looking forward to reading more Reynolds. And Bart's recommended House of Suns. I think that that's probably where I'll go next because I know that that still is another standalone or singleton instead of getting into sort of the series aspect of it. Very entertaining read. I couldn't believe it was a second novel. We've read some novels as buddy reads where I don't think writers were as accomplished as Reynolds was in creating the plot. And there's even some very poetic parts in here. Some of the descriptions of the world were beautiful. And the creation of there's an alien, at least one alien excuse me, species within here. Won't say too much about it, but it was a fascinating creation as well. So lots of marks for plotting, lots of marks for the world building. The character development was a little bit different. It's an interesting study a little bit about identity that I'll get into a little bit later, because this character is trying to understand who they are, their memories, and how that plays into who they are at the present. And that's where I think there's an interesting interplay that we may discuss. I found the ending very fast, very designed to try to highlight a conflict at a certain moment to perhaps the distress of some of the other plot points. And so that held me back a little bit in terms of wanting to give this a 5 out of 5, but I would definitely say, and we've chatted about this on Voxer too, I think that it's definitely in that 4 out of 5 range. A recommended read. I don't think it's going to become a classic of the field, but it sure is a lot of fun.
I'll go next, go around the clock. I agree. I think it's a really good place to start with Alistair Reynolds as a standalone, but it gives you a really good taste of his writing style, and the kind of worlds that he creates and the kind of science that he puts into it. I think it's a good place to kind of dip your toe into harder sci-fi as well. Like Bart said, it's hard, but it's not super hard. I think it's a really, really, really fun story. And if you are a plot-driven reader, then it's certainly something that is going to keep you turning the pages and keep you interested. Yeah, and look, the ending is a little bit disappointing. And it's one of those where I think the disappointment is kind of magnified because the first 95% of the book was so perfect. I don't think it's an ending that is like absolutely awful and, oh my God, this is the worst thing I've ever read. It's just after so much brilliance to have an ending that is rushed, it does just kind of like make it worse than it actually is. So it could have been perfect, but I don't rate books, but if I was to rate it, I would give it a 4 out of 5 or an 8 out of 10 or whatever. And I think probably the biggest disappointment is that it is plot focused, whereas it could have gone a little bit deeper, could have delved into some of the themes that he was trying to discuss, but yeah, he just wasn't as focused on that as the plot. So really good read, definite recommend, and a good place to start with Reynolds.
Yep, I agree with pretty much everything that was said, so I'm not going to repeat that. I will just add regarding the ending. For me, there was a lot of promise early on that was unfulfilled. So while I enjoyed a lot of the action and the story was excellent, and I agree it's a great place to probably start with Reynolds, although even though it is a standalone, it's kind of not also, because he's got pure standalones like House of Suns. It takes place in its own far into the future, whereas this book, Richard, is part of the Revelation space, right? So it is a standalone within that world. Version, for example, is another standalone that doesn't take place anywhere else. This is a fantastic place to start anywhere. Any of those books would be. But I do think that there is a promise unfulfilled. I felt like our character at one point learned something about himself that should have been like as an author, I could not. There was some anger that you guys heard in my voice on Boxer that I'm not going. I've meditated today before this, but I could not believe that the author did not think kind of have for our protagonist to have this emotional reckoning when he understands who he was in the past. There is nothing. It's flat. To me, that was such a huge failure that it almost like overshadows everything else, because how do you not have that, what I would call emotional kind of cleansing, let's say, right? At the end, and just like move on. I was upset about the ending, but I know a lot of people aren't. And I think this is a fantastic book. I'm so happy that I read it. Books that make you feel something, whether it's, just pure joy or even a little bit of anger, are the best books. So I highly recommend it. And I would also give it like 7.5 or 8, or, like I gave it a 4 on Goodreads. So that's my take on it.
I also gave it a 4 out of 5. I also took away that last star because of the ending. I think that Alistair Reynolds was a little overeager with this book, is how I would describe it. And the potential was there for this to be one of the best books of the last 5 years. I mean, it was there up until those last couple pages, in my opinion. And I agree. I think the payoff and the promise wasn't what it should have been. And he had the tools right there, it was right there. But I do think that he did a good job with putting this together, and especially for a new author, he constructed it very interestingly. There's a lot of advanced writing in this that he used. It did kind of remind me of some Ian Banks books that we all kind of talked about, which is a high praise. So, I mean, honestly, it was just, he spoiled us with the beginning, like 2/3 of the book to such an extreme extent that the ending was a disappointment. If it had been any other author, this would have been just fine. But he had such promise that it was like this huge expectation hangover that I experienced. And that's what took away that last star for me. So I personally liked this book better than House of Suns. So
expectation hangover. I like that phrase. That might be, if I was titling the video, it might be that. So
Richard, what do you take for that hangover in the morning when you finish the book and you have that hangover?
Another book.
Another book.
Another race.
I just feed the addiction. And for Donald Din, it was 100%. Didn't have a problem with the ending. There we go. Thank you for joining us, Donovan. Din.
Can I just say a quick thing about its kind of links to Revelation Space? Because I think it's interesting. I think some of the things that we talk about these little connections that are in the book, I can see why people may even get annoyed with them, because they're not essential to this book. It almost feels like he is putting them in because he's excited about the prospects of them. So I could see why people might get annoyed with that. Me, having read Revelation Space, I loved it. But I also want to say that Revelation Space as a series is really interesting because it's not quite a classic series in the way that you finish one book and the next one goes immediately from it. There are a lot of massive time gaps. There's only 1 or 2 characters that really move on from each other. So in a way, it almost feels like a series of standalones in a way. There's just one big concept that links the books more than it being a linear story.
Ian Banks, what?
It's a bit more than that. It's a bit more than that. And that concept is introduced in Chasm City. We are witness to that, which we can talk about later if you like.
Okay. How many books are there in the Revelation Space at this point in his
well, that's the thing as well. So the main series, there's 4. but there's also like a spin-off trilogy, the first one of which Bart has read. I can't remember what it's. Yeah, the Prefect, which is kind of
Aurora Rising is the new name for it. They changed the name.
So it's set in the same world, but it's not really linked to the main story.
And that's a series of 3 additional books. So that would make it 7 plus Chasm City 8. Century Reign is different, right?
That's a standalone. There's a couple of novellas set in that world as well.
Yeah. To be honest,
basically he builds.
That was the confusing part. I was just going to add, like, the fact that it's like linked but not linked is so confusing and daunting to me. It's the reason why I haven't picked up the other ones. Yeah. So sorry about that, Richard. Go ahead.
I was just going to say it's one of those creating a whole universe in which you tell your stories. Ian M. Banks with the culture, even Cordwainer Smith with his universe. It's interesting to me though that there's a couple different universes for Alistair Reynolds, because 8 out of 20 books that he's written. So that means that there's other universes that he's created as well.
Oh yes.
Donovan adds some more here. Let's see here. The main character's mental processes were obviously different than those of a normal person. You've read the book, Donovan, so what we're going to be doing is this might actually be a really good point to say, you've got our general views of this book. We recommend it, and maybe you will like the ending better than we did. But we're going to go into themes and ideas that will be definitely spoilers to the story. I know some people like to still listen to those anyways and read the story for themselves, but you're going to discover a lot of things that were revealed as we went forward through the book itself as we start to chat about it. So that's it. Spoiler alert. If you're leaving us, we'll see you again next time. We'll be doing more buddy reads in the future. Thanks for joining us. And for those who are still, go ahead.
I just said tally ho.
Hair of the dog. I'm not exactly sure what that comment is supposed to mean, Matty Groves. Does anyone else?
Book hangover. Going straight into another book.
That's it. Take care of the hair of the dog. You got it. I'm just not a big drinker. And we'll see you, Axelplate. So, who wants to get into the themes of identity and revenge? And
well, I think you should, Richard. You really had some good things to say on Voxer.
Absolutely.
You did good.
All right. Well, we had mentioned, Whitney had talked about in Voxer the movie Memento, and it's a movie where he starts to discover something about himself, and he's tattooed himself with things that he looks at in the mirror, and he starts to piece together things. It's told in a backwards manner. For our main character, Tanner, he is, at first, he's all about revenge, and he's pursuing Rivek, and we're definitely in his story, and we know about his boss and how his boss's girlfriend and his boss are killed, and that's part of this story, and that he loved his boss's wife, and that story gets turned over in a gigantic event, which I really won't say, but from this surviving this gigantic event, he is placed basically in a medical coma and put onto a spaceship, a cryogenic, and is sent out to the system where they revive him. And there's people called mendicants who help in the survival process. And people usually can have some amnesia. Our main character, though, is having an amnesia that includes other identities. One of the things is they tell us that he has a virus which communicates the identity of the founder of the previous planet, Sky's Edge, who actually has even become sort of a cult figure or even a religion to the people of that planet.
Church of Sky.
Story. Pardon me?
Church of Sky is the religion.
Church of Sky. And so we see his story from, and it's braided into the plot in a manner that's from when he was 3 years old all the way to when he founds the planet of Sky's Edge. That's a fascinating story of having generation ships and competition between generation ships and what that does to people and events that happen that form Sky's character. Tanner's getting this, and it gets to be almost hard to believe that this is just only from some sort of a virus, because he knows facts about the story that the virus goes beyond those facts or perhaps even disputes them. And then he also starts to get more details about what happened with his boss and his boss's wife that seemed to be beyond his scope of really knowing. So all of a sudden, this identity is embroiled in 3 different characters. And that's the main mystery of how these 3 characters work in Tanner's own mind, exist in his own mind. Then the separate action plot is what goes on with Chasm City and discovering this world, trying to find Ryvek, trying to understand why people are after him or not after him. A lot of different things happen. What I appreciated is this idea of identity and pursuing that. I don't think he pursued it far enough. I think there could have been some very interesting things said about it that didn't get there. But I don't want to go over the top spoiler, but could these 3 identities in him help create another new identity that he is presently? Could you learn and change from that which you were? That was a big question that I found fascinating.
Well, and interestingly, at the end, there is people that is just like kind of a second mention outside of the main plot that also talk about how they like were uploading themselves. It's just like a thing that some people do. That's also an additional, are you just your memories or are you more, right? Yeah. Is that the same person? And, does it really capture your soul, or is it just the style and pattern with which your electrons go off? I think that could have been a really interesting addition to the story that was mentioned. It was there, but it was just kind of in the background. It wasn't really part of the main story, I guess.
Yeah, for me, the disappointing part here was, and I think we're in spoilers, so I'll just talk. When the book starts and we believe that the protagonist is Tanner, and then we get these little hints, and this was so much fun as we were getting these hints, and we were starting to think, oh my God, is he maybe not? We were trying to figure out who is he really throughout the book, and that was great. And then the reveals to me were, Sam, I think, put it very well throughout the read. Reynolds is writing very well. He's showing us instead of telling, and then the people would just kind of stand around, face off in like a bad Hollywood style movie, and just tell each other pretty much everything before they start shooting, which was a little bit bad. But what ultimately was a failure for me was there is a moment when Tanner has to, who at the time he still thinks he's Tanner, then he finds out that he is Kahula or whatever you say his name, but then he finds out that he is ultimately Sky, this person who got somebody else killed, crucified, burnt, whatever. Went into hiding. A whole religion was created around him, but it is him throughout, kind of. And when that realization comes, it's as if nothing. It just like washes over him. And the realization that he killed all these people, and his childhood friend, the girl, all these atrocities that he committed, just being like not even a mention of some sort of internal conflict, was just like, I could not believe it. He moves on with the action as opposed to taking that moment and thinking about that metaphysical aspect, the consciousness and what it actually means, and him internally trying to think, am I really? There was just maybe a mention of it, but it was a failure. This book could have been more than just kind of a fun story, because we were hinting at it, but then Reynolds to me does not deliver, because there's just very little of introspection on Tanner's, Kaluha's, whatever, Sky's part. At the end of this book, he just moves on and then starts a business, gets rich, and lives happily ever after. And I was a little bit confused with all those opportunities for him to kind of struggle with what he's done in the past, you know, something. I mean, unless you do that, what's kind of the point of the whole thing? I couldn't, other than having a fun read.
Well, and that's why I feel like there's some other lost opportunities in some of the subplots. For example, we had this subplot with the dream fuel and discovering what dream fuel is and how it came about. And then even though we got to just do all these cool discovery, we drop it like it's a hot rock and just run away. And that would have been a perfect time for him after the, you know, initial who am I identity confrontation to go back down and maybe realize he's a different person than he was before and have that existential crisis in his resolution of the dream fuel. That would have added so much to the story, I think. And I hate that we just dropped it. I hate that we had like Amelia, who is like apparently unnecessary character. We also had the OG guy who didn't need to be there at the end. Like there were just so many things that like at the end just got dropped. And, you know, Sam, please tell me if it ever gets addressed in some of the other books, because if it doesn't, then it's kind of like Bart said, it's like kind of unforgivable lost opportunities. So does Dream Fuel come back? Does that matter? No,
not from my memory. The important thing around the grubs is not the grubs themselves, but what they face.
Chasing them.
What the problems they face and why they are. Exactly. Yeah, that's
this would have been the book then to like address that. And they just don't. And it was such a huge loss. Like it could have
crazy. It was crazy. They were, and it was even worse with me because there's a moment when one of the Zebra Horvath shoots the bad guy.
Yeah.
Like misses and then doesn't shoot him again. They're just like,
JK, we're gonna leave. What? Yeah, that was ridiculous.
Yeah, again, I really feel like that is him just planting in the big part of Revelation Space that is the linking glue between all of the books, and kind of adding it there because he's excited about his idea and wants to relate it. But it's funny because we started the book when we were wondering whether it's going to be the theme exploring revenge, and maybe he'll go through this big kind of change as a person and come to like not go through with it because he learns that it's pointless. And you know, he was
that did kind of happen. I mean, it did
kind of happen, but it was nowhere near the main focus of the story by the end of it, right? And it's funny because he was kind of building up all these grudges as he was going through, like the Russian guy on the ship and then the guys who kidnapped him. And it was like, oh, I was kind of expecting him to be like, because he kept saying to all of them, I'm going to come back and kill you. And then he never, you know, I was expecting it to be like, oh, we'll just forget it in the end because I've become a greater person. But we learned that he's actually a worse person. He's 3 worse people. And I agree. I feel like the joy of the story was finding out who he is, all 3 people who he has been. And that was the real fun of the story, of finding out this story and how they all link together and how he's moved from one to one and doing it in this mismatched time was just a really fascinating way of finding out. But I do feel like it could have gone further into the details of becoming this new person, of being this amalgamation of 3 people, because kind of like, I think as Richard was alluding to, he's become a different person now from those 3 because he's a makeup of the 3 people. And you know, the old adage goes that you are your memories, but what would happen to you if you are 3 people's memories? That's got to be pretty crazy. And I feel like it's just so much potential to go into that in a really interesting way. And I posited it in Voxer, which nobody responded to, by the way, so clearly it's a stupid idea, which is that maybe after all this time, it's not a huge book, it's nearly 600 pages long, but it'd require quite a bit more text to really delve into that in a really satisfying way. And maybe at some point
I disagree.
You don't think so?
Because I think some things could have been stripped away also. Some of the throwaway stuff that he never addressed could have been stripped away.
Get rid of the grubs, go into the...
Maybe not the grub, but there were things, I think, that could have been trimmed.
I honestly think
were unnecessary.
If we had added, I'm going to say 2 chapters, and had him go down to the dream fuel, had him have that existential crisis that we talked about that Bart so desires, and then have him figure out a little bit more of who he wants to be rather than who he actually has become, because he has 2 petty people and 1 sort of morally ambiguous situation, right? For him to say, I need to start either making amends or just accepting who he is, maybe as a person, and then have the ending of the grub finally get either killed or rescued, or how, I mean, I honestly don't, it doesn't matter to me like what happened to the grub as much as there needs to be an ending. And then we could have some kind of explanation of maybe he goes back and does something with the Church of Sky. Yeah. And I feel like that he could have done in 2 chapters and it would have been,
I don't know. I think if we did it in 2 chapters, it would end up being another case of telling rather than showing again, because there are whole books written about these things when it's one personality that go into it properly. So I think if you're just going to throw in a chapter where he goes down to the grub and then another one at the end, I feel like that's just like bosh. We're just underlining these things that we haven't answered, and it'll happen really quickly.
You assume that there's going to be a resolution that you're happy with, because it's at least in part, you're never going to answer the question of identity. You could write 20 books on it and there's not going to be an answer, right? So he has to decide like who he's going to be and what this makes him. And sometimes that has to be like enough, because he has to continue to live his life, or he has to maybe kill himself, or maybe he has to do something in real time. You don't have time to like sit down and say, I'm going to study this for the next 20 years and then I'll figure it out, right? Like, so that's why I'm saying it could be done in a smaller portion. I do think it would have been better if he had been exploring it the whole time, though. I mean, that's unquestionably correct. But I mean, if he had done that, man, this book would have really been something. Like, whoo, this, I mean, it would have been his magnum opus. Like, this book really had that much potential. It was really, really good. Up until he just drops everything. Like, oh, the virus doesn't matter. We'll never talk about that again. Just kidding.
I read a couple of books over 30 years ago now. One was called Ender's Game, and the second one was called Speaker for the Dead. And it took a very interesting turn, a very moral turn, to looking at the results of one novel and how that played morally in the character and as a greater responsibility in the universe in that second novel. And I wouldn't have needed a second novel about Tanner, but it would have been nice to see some kind of grappling with the moral horror of who he had been.
I would just say that the one thing that he's definitely not, in the end, it's not Tanner. Those are just some memories, right? But he is Sky, who then hid Azkahula, who was like selling weapons. So those are two things that he actually was, and then just Tanner is just memories that were like switched. So he does have that perspective of Tanner's, which could have made him a better person, and kind of then reflect, oh my God, what have I done as this, to me.
But even Tanner is a bit of a shit, right?
Yeah, like in a fun way.
Because so all 3 of his personalities are not good people. So maybe that's an excuse for him not having much remorse.
But the fact that he had Tanner's memories and he understood several of the events from both Kahula, or however we say, and Tanner's perspective, and he understood, like, he remembered the death of his wife as Tanner and not as himself and things like that. I would have expected the reason why Alistair Reynolds brought Tanner, the real Tanner, back would be for him to face off and realize that he has empathy for someone else. I thought that was what was going to happen.
And instead he bites him.
Instead of he turns into a snake. What the hell? Like, that was so bad. It was so bad. Bart, I'm giving you 100% credit on that. It was so bad. But I mean, it seems like the setup was there. Otherwise, why was the original Tanner there? And why was he such a monster just because he got eaten by a snake once and they cut him out and then they let him live? Like, he had been through so much worse than that. It didn't make sense that suddenly he was a monster now. Like, it was just a perfect opportunity, and that wouldn't have taken pages and pages. It wouldn't have taken more than 2 again. I really think he could have done it.
To me, the ending kind of was, he had to find a way to finish this. I think, I'm not sure that he was settled on a way to finish this when he started writing it. And to me, it was one of those video games, we've got to the big boss level now, and we have to find a way to kill the big boss. And, it's not the boss that we thought it might be. And it got simplified, I felt, at the end, where there had been a lot of depth going on before that.
The interesting thing could have been here, like a kind of huge shift, because you're talking about video game getting to the final boss. What if you get there and you find out that you're the boss? That's what this book could have been, like this shift. And then you realize it. And then maybe when you actually said, maybe you kill you, or you do something, you go out in the blaze of glory and you save the poor grub who's still there being tortured.
I know. Well, it's fine because he's going to kill him a couple months before he dies anyway. So that'll be fine. That's fine.
He said he's going to hire somebody maybe to do it.
Yeah. So that makes up for it for sure.
Yeah.
Do the grubs show up in Revelation space at all? No? Really? So this is
not
only
from my memory. If they did, then it's completely leaked out of my brain.
Well, I know Robin of Bookspin is lurking around here. At least was. He probably would know. I think he's read all of Reynolds. He's talked to Reynolds a couple times too on his channel.
Nice.
By the way, I'm just gonna throw it out there in case somebody's interested. But I think you all have read Cloud Atlas. But Robin and I, at some point, maybe in May, we're gonna read Cloud Atlas together. I know Sam is reaching for one of his favorites.
I actually have this one. Yay!
I haven't read it either. I loved the movie. I mean,
I've watched the movie.
I haven't seen
read the book.
Mm-hmm. Well, it would be really fun if you guys decide to do your chat when you read it. Is read it and then watch the movie and then do your chat. That would be fun.
I heard the movie wasn't great.
Really, I liked it. Maybe it's because it's comparison to the book. I mean, obviously, maybe that's it. But I will say I have.
Robin answered.
Robin gave us her answer.
Thanks, Robin.
I will say it's not like I know Alistair Reynolds or anything, but I did talk to him one time. I mean, it was a good 30-minute conversation. Okay. Ooh. So, Yeah.
Is this on your channel?
Didn't you say that he kind of started following you around?
No, I will tell you that he talks a lot and he gets really excited about it, which is what you want from one of your authors. And it was at the Hugos actually, and at the time I had just finished eating and I was like, oh my gosh, there's Alistair Reynolds. I'm going to talk to him. And then he talked to me for a long time, and then I was like, okay, I have to go because I need to go to the bathroom. I have to go. And he was like, okay, but one more thing. And then I was like, I'm going to pee my pants. I have to go. And he just wouldn't stop. And I'm like, I love him. I'm like, I'll come back, but I have to pee. I have to. It was funny.
I love how he's so engaged with his ideas that he keeps you there. That's awesome.
Well, and I feel like if you got to talk.
Wait a minute, guys. Maybe he just doesn't know how to end.
Hey.
Oh.
Did you tell him your thoughts on House of Suns, Whitney?
No, I hadn't read it by then.
Oh, that's good.
But I did ask him why he changed the prefix to Aurora Rising when there were so many other books named Aurora Rising. And he was like, yeah, that was kind of a bad idea.
Well, speaking of that, I have another idea.
Mm-hmm.
It came to me as I was reading the book. And I forgot to, I think I forgot to mention this on Voxer. And it came to me now. I would have thought that a better name for this. I mean, Chasm City is a good name, but why not Sky's Edge? It's then you're a place, but also the name of the main character, Sky. He's like on Sky's Edge. I think sounds like a really good title for me.
I actually completely agree. I thought about this because I know Whitney loves linking books to their titles.
I do.
When they're linked well, I know it's a really big pleasure point for her. And I just thought it was kind of, it's not really related to the story. Sure, most of the, well, not even, I don't know, 70% of the book happens in Chasm City, but it's not about Chasm City.
It's not. It's about Sky.
No.
Well, there is, I mean, Chasm City is the main city, and I do think that he tried to bring Chasm City back around with the ending, which we all know how we feel about him just going off and getting rich, and that's suddenly awesome. But I'm with you. I also kind of think that his titles aren't that great in general. I know that's terrible, but ouch. I mean, Revelation Space is okay. It's a good one. It's okay. But like a lot of his titles are just like, this was my initial idea, and then he just pitched it as that, and then just like never changed it, right? That's
all right. So now we got a good question that we can sort of finish off our chat on. What are great titles that really link well with the story of their novel?
Everything in Banks.
Yeah.
100%. Good titles, I think. Yep.
I love the one that comes to my head right away, Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke. I love that title.
That's a good title for sure.
Oh, goodness.
It's kind of a spoilery title, though, because you can start to figure it out if you're too observant.
Well, I was too dumb to figure that out when I was a kid.
Another title that's really good, Fire Upon the Deep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Machine Vendetta. That's a good title.
I don't know the story, Robin, so I'll assume that it ties in well with the story.
I think that's Alistair Reynolds' third book from Aurora Rising, isn't it? Robin, you'll have to tell us which number that is, but I think it's the third one.
In the latest series, basically, right?
I was going to say Remembrance of the Earth's Past trilogy has good titles, I think. All of them, Death's End. I think that's a good one for the third. Dark Forest, and obviously the Three Body Problem. I think they're good titles too for more recent.
Totally blanking. I'm trying to
go through my studying there.
I'm trying to go through my Goodreads and see what I like.
Oh, okay.
But apparently, I don't like any of them.
But I think
was it Harlan Ellison?
Interesting titles.
Philip K. Dick has these long sentence-like structure ones too, like really very memorable. Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep? Very memorable type of titles.
But then you'll have Ubik or Valis, just one word also. These are both good titles for sure. I think science fiction overall has good titles.
I do think Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep is an incredible title, because who doesn't want to pick that up? Yeah. And then when you get to the story, you're like trying to figure out the actual answer to that question, and it's a lot different than what you would expect, I guess.
Well, I wonder when they were pitching the movie, why they changed the title. Did they think for readers a longer title like that works, but for movie viewers, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep just doesn't work? That's why Blade Runner.
It's also because they made significant changes to the story too.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
Monday Starts on Saturday by the Strugatsky brothers is one of Robin's favorites.
Well,
I must say,
the Roadside Picnic is good too. That's a great
I was going to say, all the Strugatsky brothers has some really good ones, like Hard to Be a God. I haven't read that one, but what an incredible title.
Yeah.
The Left Hand of Darkness is a great name.
Yeah, it is. Yep.
Yeah. Count Zero, that would be William Gibson, and the Neutronium Alchemist from what's his name? Starts with H.
Peter Hamilton.
The other big author who we didn't talk about, who has lots of books.
Peter Hamilton.
Hamilton, yeah. All right. You know what? I'm not going to stress Sam out here anymore. He's just reading away, trying to find a title.
I really am.
How about let's just briefly say, perhaps what's coming up on our channels, and we'll call it a day. So maybe we'll go down. We'll go to Whitney. This is like the Brady Brunch thing, looking down. So Whitney, we'll go down to you, and then over to Bart, and then to Sam.
Okay, well, I am currently trying to work on the promised series of 3 videos that I am, I think I've talked about before, but I'm calling the Wugos, which is the Hugos according to Whitney. Those are currently what I'm working on, and it's which books should have won each year that held the Hugo. So it's a little bit torturous, and I bet you guys are already tired of me complaining and talking about it. But thank you so much for all of the help that you're giving me. So
can't wait.
I'm looking forward to it.
So I guess I'm next.
Yeah,
I might even shoot a video right now when we hang up. When we finish this, I'm gonna shoot a video just talking about my February reads. There are some good ones. I'll talk about those. I think that's gonna be my next video, if I can get it out, because I'm going skiing. I'm going on a fun trip every year. Once a year we get away with like me and my friends, kind of boys only trip, skiing trip, and we're driving over to Utah. They got a lot of snow, so it's gonna be interesting. Kind of a hardcore skiing trip. And yeah, so I'm hoping to get that video out. But I did a fun video. I thought it was fun. It was fun to shoot. And Sam commented that I was funny in it. So that was a great compliment. Comedic
One
genius.
in a row.
One in a row. Thank you. I have that saved, your message when you call me comedic genius. I can hang up my my microphone now. Anyway, the video was about books that I think are good to kind of break through a reading slump if you're in it for different reasons, different types of books for different reasons. So check it out if you haven't seen it. It's on my channel.
Honestly, guys, I'm just flying by the seat of my pants right now. I don't know what's coming up.
Well, your last video, the one you did, was great, I thought. When you talked about the wrap up was
worth, right?
Yeah. 2 months, yeah. Just because life is so crazy right now. I got a 3-month-old. I got a degree. I've got a job. I've got somewhat of a life to live in between all of that, and I need to read at some point. So I don't know. I just kind of do videos as and when, and I kind of just make it up on the go. So I know that's a really boring and rubbish answer, but I just have to be honest. I don't know. So we'll see.
What about you, Richard?
I was just going to say I really appreciate that Sam joined us on this buddy read. Really appreciated having you, and that you made time to get together today too.
It was good to be back. Honestly, it was a little difficult sometimes, like really squeezing in those reads, but it was well worth it.
And for myself, I've been putting off a video for a while on Shirley Jackson and the lottery and other stories. I'm thinking I may also link another short story that I read. The lottery is a story I read, I believe it was in grade 8 in school. And Shirley Jackson is very interesting. I'm looking forward to chatting about her. But there's another story I read that same year. I believe it was called Lennon and the Ants, about just a gigantic swarm of ants trying to overcome this man and his compound. And so I'm thinking of just finding that online and reading it and linking it in as 2 stories I read in grade 8 that still stick with me today. So it's a little bit different than vintage SF, but I think it's a lot of fun always to see some of the stories that were memorable from your younger years.
Yeah. And is the move complete? You've been kind of showing us step by step as you're moving. Is it? Are you all done?
I'm all done book-wise. They're all here, and there's a couple things that we have to move because our possession or the possession date for the person who's bought our house, which is all done, is March 19th. We're filming today. What is it? March 3rd, I think. And there's a few things that we left there for staging that we're still going to get moved over here, but the vast majority is here, and we're feeling like this is home now. So
nice.
It's been a hectic month, and thank you for those of you who've watched some of the videos I put together about just putting shelves together or figuring out how to put books into this room. But I think it's going to be a lot of fun living here. I think I'm really going to enjoy it, and my wife and I feel like we're in walking distance from so many different things. It's really good. We're in more into the central Winnipeg, And if people know Winnipeg, there's sort of a district that's called the Forks, where the two rivers meet. We're close to that area. So, all right. I think that there is a buddy read coming up. Was it March 10th that we were thinking about starting another one? Sam's not going to be with us on this one.
I think was it 10th? I had it in my diary as 17th, 16th.
Oh, so Sam, are you with us?
No, I think this got confused because we added one. We added one that was going to be in between Chasm City and Mockingbird.
Right.
And we added the Cryptonomicon, I believe, for Neil Stevenson. But
another
Bart
prolific guy.
Right, but Bart couldn't join it until the 10th. And then so that means we're going to have to push our Mockingbird back a little bit.
Okay, well, let's talk about it.
Sorry to bring that discussion onto here. I didn't realize it was a undecided factor. But you've heard of 2 different books that we're going to be looking at, so lots more to come. And thank you for joining us. Appreciate you having here, and for those who are watching afterwards, take care, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.